I would like to acknowledge that this video is being filmed on the traditional lands of the Wurrundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander or First Nations people who may be watching this video today. Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Books Beside My Bed video for you where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading, and this is the next week of my November long TBR game chooses my reading, and it's going fantastic so far. If I look a little frazzled, it's because I've had a minor cabinetry issue this morning in my apartment and I'm vaguely terrified that a very heavy glass mirror is about to fall off a door, so I have taken steps to avoid that. But if I'm a little frazzled, that's why. But we are here to talk about books, so we are going to get straight on that. So this is my reading week from the 5th until the 11th of November. In this reading wrap up, I'm going to be talking just about the books and one manga that fit into the TBR game, TBR, but all of the manga reads are going to be counted in a separate video that's going to come out this week as my midway point through 30 and 30 as well. That said, I have included the page count and the numbers of books read so far this year, including both of those lists. So that's why the numbers are a little bit out there. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 9 texts, but overall this week I read 3,817 pages. A lot of that was manga, and I have read a total of 547 books for the year. All right, so one of the prompts that I had on my TBR game for this month was a chance card where I landed on a manga prompt, and for this I read That Wolf Boy Is Mine, Volume 1 by Wurrundjeri, and this is about a high school girl who is bullied at her school and she transfers to a new school and she tries to be unobtrusive at this new school, but she notices there is a very popular, very attractive group of boys at this school, and she ends up sitting next to one of them in her class, and he kind of blurts out that she smells amazing. And then later she crosses paths with him again while he's sleeping underneath a tree, and when she goes to wake him up, he turns into a wolf. And as it turns out, he and his friends are animal shifters, and no one knows their secret except her. This was cute and fun, and I would be very interested in continuing with a few more volumes. I forget how many there are, but some of these are on KU, which is how I read it. Then I read A Christmas Fairy Tale by Corinne Maziel. This was for the Happy Street prompt to read a holiday themed title. It was one of Megan's prompts, and this is a super short Australian Christmas novella. It is about a woman who was in a very physically abusive relationship, and she ended up in hospital with permanent scars, and as a result she kind of, flash forward a few years, she kind of keeps to herself. She's very self-conscious about her scars because they're on her face, and she gets caught out in a snowstorm in her car breaks down and she has to start walking back into town. Not a great idea. And she is seen by the local vet who has a huge crush on her. So this is their relationship. It was perfectly fine. It's super short, so the storytelling is very concise and to the point. The one thing I will say, and this is a really minor thing to be niggling about, but I kept thinking about it the entire book, her car breaks down in the snow and it's never mentioned what happens to the car, which I know is not a giant thing, but your car breaks down in the snow or wherever it is. Wouldn't you want to know what happened to the car? Even just a throwaway line. He organized for someone to go pick up her car, but it's never touched on ever again. I'm like, did her car just stay there? Did it ever come back? That really pulled me out of the story, and it's like, as I said, it's such a silly thing to be pulled out of a story on, but I totally was. Then I read Daillencourt is About to Crumble by Alexis. It is his most recent release and the final release of his for 2022, because he had massive releases this year. I don't know how he did it. I read this for the Brie Boulevard prompt to buddy read a book with Brie. So Brie and I were buddy reading this over a couple of days last weekend. This one took me the longest to read of any book I've read recently, and I don't think that was a bad thing because this book deals very heavily with extreme anxiety and panic disorder, to the point where even while I was reading it, I was starting to get really anxious. So it is about Paris. He comes from a wealthy family, and he doesn't know it at the time, but his mental health is really bad. And he just thinks he's very self-conscious, and he doesn't want to upset people, and he always wants to be perfect, but he doesn't recognize it for what it is. And some of his friends don't even recognize it for how extreme it is. And so the first half of this book is literally him leading up to a massive episode that, as I said, made me feel really anxious. Not because it was badly written, because it was so well written that I'm like, I recognize some of these things when I end up in a high state of anxiety or in panic. And so that part was really well done. But if you are someone who does suffer from anxiety, I would be really cautious reading this. Make sure you're in a good place, because It's full on. Paris is a fantastic cook. He loves to bake, and so his roommate and best friend enters him into a baking show, which is not the best idea for someone who is just constantly second guessing himself. So the first part of the book is the baking show, and on his first day, he is just an absolute nervous wreck. He unintentionally slams a fridge door into a contestant's nose who happens to be his future love interest in the story. He's constantly second guessing himself, and then he unintentionally insults the guy that he hit with the fridge at the end of the weekend. And so it goes on from there. And Tariq, the love interest, is, very accommodating to a point, but even he gets to a point where like helping people through their mental health issues is a really tough thing. And they start this relationship, they're getting along great, but eventually, dealing with Paris's anxiety becomes a huge burden on both of them. It's one of those things, and it ends really badly, and that's about the 50% mark. The second half of the book is when the baking competition is airing, and so it's interesting because the first half of the book, all of the chapters are based on the weeks of the baking competition. So you go week 1 this, week 2 that, and then the second half is based on the episode release. So episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, which is a really cool format. And so the first half is leading up to Paris finally having this moment that causes him to face up to the fact that he has severe mental health issues. And then it is about how he rebuilds from there and how he allows himself some grace in that, and how he then rebuilds his relationship with Tariq. As with all Alexis Hall books, all of the side characters are fantastic and amazing. The Winner Bakes All series is really fun. Like I don't love this one as much as I loved Rosaline Palmer Takes the Cake, but I think this one is doing really important work. This is, Alexis Hall's bread and butter, literally. He's bringing really contemporary issues, putting them in his books and making people confront them. And I think that is a great thing. So alongside all of the just really great discussions around anxiety and mental health disorders, there is also some truly fantastic discussions around religion and relationships, because Tariq is Muslim and he adheres to his faith. And so Paris has to learn about that and has to understand that his way of thinking is not the way that other people think on multiple levels, but also how Tariq faces racism and commentary on his faith and all of that. Like it is so well done. And I wanted to hug all of them. But yes, as I said, go into this in a good mental health state. Don't pick it up on a whim. As I've said in many videos, I don't get super triggered, but this one, like I could not have read this in one sitting, and I read everything in one sitting. So be aware of that. My TikTok prompt, or my first TikTok prompt, was to read a book off my physical TBR, and for that I read Locked Up Liars. This is a completely different change of pace. This is kind of romantic suspense, I think, but it is a Why Choose story. So in this one you have the heroine May. She wakes up to find her sister has been murdered in her bed, and the most likely suspect is her sister's ex-boyfriend, who happened to be staying the night with May. He's sent off to prison, and at first she blames him, and then she starts thinking, okay, no, hang on, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. And so she sets out to prove him wrong. She hires him a lawyer, and she also gets herself a job working at the prison. She's a teacher, and they're in need of people to volunteer adult learning classes for the inmates. And so she applies for this job in order to be able to talk more freely to Heath. This will eventually become the relationship between all 4 of those people. Not too much happens in this first book. It does end on a cliffhanger, so be aware of that. The cliffhanger does, deal with Vincent, who is my favorite character that I read in the follow-up trilogy. So I've read the first book in the follow-up trilogy, but I figured I should go back and reread this one before I do that, because Vincent plays a big part in this one too. So yes, I really enjoyed this one, and I'm looking forward to continuing it. Then for the Chaos Loop prompt from Megan to read a book with food on the cover, I read A Match Made for Thanksgiving by Jackie Lau. This is the first book in the Holiday with the Wongs series. It is about Nick and Lily, who have a one-night stand, and then Lily turns up at Nick's family's Thanksgiving dinner as a blind date that has been set up for his older brother. So Nick's parents have set up blind dates for all of their single children, and to say that the dinner doesn't go quite to plan is putting it mildly, but it is Nick and Lily's relationship. It was really fun, it was funny, and I'm looking forward to reading more in this series because I just really enjoyed all of the characters. Nick's family was hilarious. Then my second Happy Street prompt for Megan was another holiday read, and for this one I read Christmas on the 13th Floor by Lee Jacquot, which was the first book in the Holy Night series. So I read Hollow's Grove last week, last week, the week before, one of them. And I really enjoyed that one. I didn't enjoy this one quite as much. It was still really good. It is a novella. So you have Presley, who works for Mr. Chen, and she doesn't really like his boss. She thinks he is bossy and demanding, and she is, you know, only doing her job because she needs the money and she's looking for something else. She doesn't realize it, but she is attracted to him, and he is very much attracted to her, and he likes pushing her buttons. So that's like, he's a very dominant alpha character, possibly in the way that I don't like it. Like I do like alpha heroes. I usually don't have an issue with them, but sometimes they just push my buttons the wrong way, and I think this fell on that side of it. He forces her to attend the annual Christmas party. That's where their relationship kicks off, and she realizes that, you know, maybe she likes having a really dominant guy boss her around, and maybe that she likes playing the brat in the relationship. And all of that is totally fine. There is some praise kink in here as well. But yeah, I didn't really like the hero enough for this to work especially well for me. Then I read Cavalier by T.L. Smith. This is the first book in the Crimson Elite series. I read it for the HEA Avenue prompt from Heather to read a new to me author. T.L. Smith is an author that I met at Books Insight Melbourne, so I was very eager to try this book. It is about a woman who ends up getting a job at Crimson Elite, which is a very exclusive sex club that is incredibly selective about employees and people who attend. She is hired as a bartender after one of the co-owners sees her standing up for herself at her previous bartending job, but she ends up getting fired. He's very attracted to her, and he again is another one of the alpha characters that I just doesn't do it for me, because it felt like there was a little bit of a lack of nuance to him in a way. Like, he's used to getting what he wants, when he wants it, and the way that he wants it, and he treats her appallingly. And I don't think that the groveling, the making up part of that relationship was done in enough depth. That said, I'm still eager to try more of T.L. Smith's work and see if this was just a one-off. I had swapped this out. I was planning on reading Black by her, and I wanted something that I could read more as a standalone. I think Black you might have needed to read on to a second book, but I just wanted to try standalone. Then for the new release prompt, I read Bad Deal by Annabeth Albert. This was one of the books that I had out on KU. It's only recently come out in the last month or so. It is the third book in the A-List Security series, which is an contemporary romance story between bodyguards and their clients. This one was fun because both characters are 40 plus, or they're both in their early 40s. Harley is ex-military and he's working for his buddy's security company, and it's his relationship with a popular TV show frontrunner Ambrose. Ambrose is attacked while returning to his car after a day on set, and Harley happens by and saves him, and is then hired as his bodyguard as Ambrose is traveling on a road trip to his niece's wedding. In order to avoid people freaking out that Ambrose has a bodyguard, they pretend to be fake boyfriends. Harley is pansexual, and it's thrown around that he might be demi-romantic as well, which is really interesting. He's never been with a man, but he's never been opposed to it. So it is him learning what he likes alongside Ambrose, who is very attracted to Harley. It is a road trip. There is only one bed. There's a wedding. There is a stay in a secluded mountain cabin. Annabeth Albert just knows how to pick all of the tropes that I really like. It's really fun. Was just a great palate cleansing book, and I thought this was going to be the last book in the series, but apparently there's another one between two members of the security company, which I'm very intrigued by, so you'll hear about that when that one comes out. And then the final book that I read this week was Not the Girl You Marry by Andy J. Christopher. This was one of May's prompts for her Square fanfiction way, and it was to read a book that was based on Chris Evans. The hero in this is very Chris Evans in style. I mean, in the first couple of chapters, he's described as a golden retriever of a man. Golden retriever or Labrador, it doesn't matter. Both of those I would use to describe Chris Evans, who, by the way, was voted People's Sexiest Man in the last 2 weeks. And how that has not occurred before now, I don't know why, but totally well deserved. So this is about Jack, who is a journalist. He writes listicles for a magazine, and he kind of wants to move up into political journalism. That's where his passion lies. He tries to pitch an idea to his boss, but his boss basically says, well, you can do that, but first you have to write an article on how to lose a girl in 2 weeks. And this is kind of the antithesis for Jack, because Jack tries very hard not to be the toxic masculinity stereotype. It doesn't always work in his favor, and he tends to smother people, but he is definitely trying not to do all of the things. Like, he has commentary on the fact that he can't believe what his friends do in their relationships. And he's like, you need to stop doing this. And for that, I loved him, because you can tell he's trying really, really hard, and he's trying to listen. Sometimes he misses the point, but he sets out to write this article, and the only problem is he's so conflicted because the girl he's trying out all of these ways to lose women on is someone he really likes. He met Hannah in a bar. He was immediately taken with her. They end up going on dates, and his internal commentary while he's doing these things is just, this is the worst thing ever. Why? But he really wants this promotion. On the flip side, Hannah has been burnt by previous relationships, and she is an event planner, and she kind of gets stuck with all of the sports events and and all of those sorts of things, because she's not seen as a serious event planner. Like, she doesn't get the weddings because people don't see her as having a sense of romanticism around it. When she wants to help out with a wedding, her boss basically says, well, you have to prove that you can do this and you have to prove that you believe in romance and you believe in all of this. If you can date a guy for 2 weeks, then I'll let you take over this account. And so both Jack and Hannah are coming to this relationship, these conflicting reasons for being in this relationship, despite the fact that they both really like one another and they have great chemistry. And of course that all comes to a head, and that was highly stressful for me because I was just waiting for that whole thing to explode. But for all of that, there were excellent groveling moments in this book after all of that happened, and I really liked it. This was my first full-length Angie J. Christopher novel, and I'm now very intrigued to pick up her other books, so that was a success. Okay, so now we're going to go into some more TBR rolls for the next couple of weeks. Again, I'm going to do 10 rolls just because having a huge variety made it a lot easier to pick things up. There are still things from my first lot of rolls that I haven't read yet. I'm saving the anthology for this weekend, and I'm just waiting on my Lana Peherchek book to arrive, so I can't really read those until that happens. Also, at times, my camera, while I was filming the rolls, was going in and out of focus, so I profusely apologize for that, but I didn't realize until after, and I didn't want to re-roll things because I'd already started picking things from the TBR, and I just thought this is more authentic that way. Okay, so we are going to continue with some more rolls for this week. The last roll was on Alona Andrews Avenue. I totally forgot to do a TikTok roll this week. It's been a hectic week, so we're just going to go with it. Okay. 3. 1, 2, 3. Monster Drive. So this is another one of Izzy's properties. 4. Okay, so the first roll was Monster Drive. This is one of Izzy's prompts, and this was to start a series. For that, I'm going to read Heated by Naima Simone, which is Burned Ink 1. I had seen Naima Simone talk about the second book in the series because she's coming to Rare next year. At least I hope she's still coming to Rare next year. And the second book sounded amazing, but we might as well start the first book. And I think I also have audio for it. I'm looking forward to it. Next roll is 9. 1, 2. Oh, add a roll. Okay, so I was going to do 10 rolls, so that's 11. 2. 1, 2. Nevada. So that is one of Megan's cards. 1. Reread a Warm Fuzzies book. Believe it or not, I have a jar for that. Okay, let's choose a prompt card. 1. No, that's 2. Why is it 2? Nevada Drive was one of Megan's prompts, and this was to reread a book that gives you warm fuzzies. For this, you saw me get out my rereads jar, and I pulled His Leading Lady by Jenny Nordbach. This is a steamy contemporary book, but I haven't read it in a while, and I remember really enjoying it. So I don't know if it's going to be super warm fuzzies, but it will definitely make me feel happy to reread it. And I've been meaning to get to it for a long time. 8. Anticipated release. The next prompt was an anticipated release. For this, I'm planning on reading A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. This is the second book in the Monk and Robot series duology. I can't remember which one it is, but I'm very excited. I've been waiting for this book all year, so I need to pick it up. It's novella length as well, which is nice. 8. Action Avenue. Okay, so this is another one of Bree's ones, and these prompts are very in-depth. 6. Ask a favourite author to give you a rec. Then I landed on another one of Bree's places. This was Action Avenue, and the prompt that I pulled from this one was to ask a favourite author to recommend me a book. So I reached out to Evie Mitchell, so thank you very much, Evie, for giving me some prompts, and it was really fun because she sort of gave me an A, B or C choice, and her 3 prompts were Secret Santa by Katie Wilde, which I've actually read, so I probably would have gone that one if I hadn't already read it. She Went All the Way by Megan Cabot, and also Fomance by L.H. Cosway. I'm not quite sure which of those 2 that I'm going to read. I'm going to tentatively put them both on my TBR because they both sound great and I would like to read them, so we'll see which one I get to. So thank you again, Evie. I very much appreciated it. 10. Back on Alona Andrews Avenue. So we had this one last round as well. This is Kirsty's prompt card.
1. Paranormal.
My next stop was Alona Andrews Avenue, which was Kirsty's prompt, and the specific prompt was for a paranormal book. For this, I'm going to try and read Playing with Hellfire by Millie Young. Again, another author I met at Books Insight Melbourne, but didn't get a chance to start reading any of her books. So this one seemed the most paranormal-ish. I think this one is Demons.
4. Chance card.
Then I landed on a chance square and I pulled an Australian title. For this, I'm going to read Coyote by Lila Rose. Lila Rose, again, is another author that I would really like to try one of her books. I believe this is an MC romance.
So we are back on Nevada Drive. This time we have a 3. So that is main character has a pet.
Everyone, editing Steph here. I totally forgot to choose a book for this prompt, and I need to do a little bit of research into books that have characters with pets. So I will let you guys know when I find one.
9 again. Alien Avenue. Don't think we've landed on that one yet. And this is Ava's prompt card. 6. Alien.
Then I landed on Ava's Square, Alien Avenue, and landed on the prompt Alien. And for this, I'm going to read Dark Planet Falling by Anna Carvin. This is the second book in this series. I read the first book ages ago. I'm pretty sure it was one of the prompts that Megan had given to me when I did what Megan chooses my TBR. And I really, really enjoyed the first book, and I have the rest of the series. I just haven't continued on yet. So this is the perfect opportunity.
12. All right, so these are the prompts for Unicorn Lane. 5. Novella.
Then I landed on another of Heather's prompts, Unicorn Lane, and for this I landed on the prompt to read a novella. For this, I'm planning on reading Forevermore, or Love Forevermore. I kind of can't work out the title, but the biggest title is Forevermore. And this is by Alex Grayson. I don't know anything about it. I received it as one of the prizes in the raffle that I got from Books Insight Melbourne, so I figured I should read it.
7. New release.
The next square was new release, and for this I am going to put Two Wrongs Make a Right by Chloe Lisa, and I'm hoping that there are no delays with the release in this here in Australia, because I have pre-ordered it and I would really like to read it. I mean, it's Chloe Lisa and I love her work.
And last roll for now, 10. Add another roll. Of course it is. All right, that's fine. 1, 2, 3. Members choose. That is also very fitting. And so this prompt is from Tracey, and it is to read a book with nature on the cover.
And for the final roll this week, I landed on Members Choose. This was one of Tracey A's prompts, and it was to read a book with nature on the cover. And I'm kind of cheating with this one because I have been meaning to read this book for ages. There are roses on the cover. Roses are found in nature. We're just going to roll with it, guys, because I'm me. And that is Faking with Benefits by Lila Gold, which is another Why Choose book. But I've heard really good things about it, and I've had it for months, and I just want to read it. So we're putting it on here and we're going to try and do it. All right, so that is everything for this week. Thank you for sitting through another long video. I will have my mugger wrap up later this week as well, so definitely stay tuned for that. In the comments, I would love to know if you have read any of these books or if you're planning on picking any of them up. If you'd like to let me know you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave any kind of cake emoji down below, or sweets. Go for your life. There's a book about a baking competition. I'm happy with any kind of sweet treat. I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.